So I'm not sure this is a particularly quantified self issue in terms of health or personal tracking, but I kind of enjoyed during the conversations before we started talking about capturing your thoughts, ideas, your thinking processes, and how you create connectivity between information, yourself, your objectives. That's kind of a quantified self process. So I'll do just a quick intro to this kind of idea of dynamic quantification of your thinking, of your ideas, and of your content of information. So in this sense, this particular mechanism is kind of all manual at this stage, but one of my companies is working on an automated minority report type interface that brings together this kind of ability into a three-dimensional environment that allows you to automatically bring information together in a contextually relevant perspective. And so, as you can see, I've just been scribbling down some notes from the meeting so far. And for example, I've already happily contributed $10 to OpenPCR. Tito, give us a thumbs up. Yeah. So the OpenPCR personal DNA mechanism. So you can see that you've got all that kit there. All your information is together. For example, that relates to the topic of synthetic biology. And I might have a whole set of information about that. And about how all this comes together. And so, you can see I've got topics in terms of synthetic biology on some websites, documents, a whole bunch of information, files, reports. If you bring all the ideas and everything you have together in one space, these blue lines that you see, these are inherent value that every one of us is missing on a daily basis by using standard linear computing and tracking, information tracking tools. This contextual connectivity is over half the value of the information you guys are holding in your heads, in your digital environments. You've got a wealth of content and information. So this is about how you quantify not only just what's going on physically, metaphysically, but how you quantify what's going on here and make it then applicable so you can bring a kind of metrics capability to it. And going back to today's meetup, and you can see how everything can link into different data sets of information that you have. So I can, for example, just opened up an Outlook, a piece of Outlook content. So anything that you have, if you can connect it, quantify it, and keep it all in one point, that's a really great way to quantify your own mental state. So that's just a little introduction to those sort of ideas of dynamic mapping of your thinking. Thank you. Yeah, please, anyone? So this software is a brilliant tool I've been using for 10 years called The Brain. So you can access it at thebrain.com, www.thebrain.com.
How many thoughts are in The Brain?
So currently I have about 65,000 thoughts in the brain. I don't have any directory structure on my computer. I don't have any bookmarks in my web environments. Everything, my Outlook, web, documents, data, spreadsheets, everything is linked into this one. So the question was one, does this dissipate focus? Does it allow one to lose focus? So for example, okay. So in terms of focus, what I found over the years, in terms of how you quantify yourself in terms of who you are. So for example, this whole environment is now like a hard drive for my mind. I'm probably one of the world's first human symbolic beings in that really all of my thinking and my thoughts and ideas I've really digitized, even to the very point of ideas. I think of something, there's lots of ideas that will go into this. But for example, I have kind of two halves to the environment. One is content that is archival in basis or external So here are a number of, under these portfolios, are a number of projects, my companies and other projects, and social groups that I'm actively pursuing, that I create contributory work to. So it's like a project portfolio. Here, in fact, you can see this is a Microsoft project portfolio. So in fact, rather than dissipating focus, it allows me to run, organize, and operate probably, I would say, half an order of magnitude more than I would do if I did not have any control over my information, myself, and my abilities to manage that information and content. So these particular environments, these first environments are amongst the first ways of not only just storing information, but looking at the relevance of information, how you can draw out information. So I can, at the moment, not only can I just store documents, content, and other information, I can create meta tags, meta information around that content. Currently, this is all manual. Actually, the company that I have is trying to create an automatic system that uses semantic and AI capabilities. But the beauty of this is that, of course, all this data is openly accessible in an XML environment. This is just one example of software tools that are out there. Now, having that software and your data sets XML accessible means that as new tools and capabilities come aboard, especially ones for semantic linking, contextual linking, and integration, I've got a data set that is probably a decade ahead of what I would have normally had I tried to start off with those tools from the start. So for example, there's a bunch of content and information here that would be generally useful for this audience, that there would be value there for what is collected, as we all have data sets that are collected. You can put this kind of environment online, you can separate chunks of this environment, and you can run it like presentations so that you can pass on that content and actually convert it to different formats for your project. This is actually a really interesting environment because you have certain sets of information on different bits of yourself, of the journey you take, and you find that, I found that having, making links between information and taking that journey, that contextual journey, leads me into areas that I'd completely forgotten, that I might have looked at 2-3 years ago, that completely opens up a whole light, sheds some light on a whole new area of thought or ideas or related content that I've totally forgotten about. And yes, preferably a juicy one, right? So of course I have all my photographs and personal content that's there, as well as my business content and other layers of information. I don't have any particularly juicy ones, but for example, there are areas on, say, philosophy that I looked at, and I made notes on different philosophers, etc. I'd made previously some notes on mysteries of ancient history, things like origins of the pyramids and things like that. And I found out, it's just one example I recall, that I made some connections between one set of ideas, thoughts, and authors and histories, that it came and linked into another set on mysteries of ancient history, and those two linked together. So there was a link that I wouldn't have generated between philosophical schools of thought and actually ancient historical schools of thought.
Just taking more questions.
So it depends how much time I spend thinking. So for example, today at this meeting, I spent maybe 10 minutes putting this together while I was listening to some of the content that was going on. So it's an ongoing activity. I might spend, whether it's on its own or with, in parallel with another activity, I might spend an hour, 2 hours a day building connections, putting in thoughts, ideas. It does take some overhead and effort, but that's the way things happen. I know it's worth it because of the content and the results. I've been at meetings where someone said a particular author or word or a particular field of study. I've thrown that in the search term. It's come up. The information around that has come up, and I've been able to quote back within 10 seconds a piece of specific information about that person's field opposite the table that he didn't want me to know about. In fact, it was particularly actually a co-author on a paper, and he didn't want me to know about for whatever reason. And I said, "Oh, do you know this chap?" He was like, "Oh, yes, we wrote the paper together." And so it enables an outstanding capability of recall that you will have. So in many ways, it's made my thinking processes systematic, more systematic for better or for worse. I've always thought very visually in terms of mind mapping and using those tools for a long time. So this is probably more a natural bent for me. This is a natural way of thinking for me. It's not for everyone, but it's certainly I get withdrawals away from this for 2-3 years.